We have a special guest coming on right now to help us with this story. We're going to talk about the housing market right now. He's an award-winning reporter, New York Times best-selling author, former host of his own show on MSNBC, and the host of the podcast Truth or Skepticism at Tasty Trade. It's our good friend Dylan Ratigan. Hi, Dylan.
James.
Good to see you. Good to see you. How you feeling?
Feeling good.
Okay. Are you
feeling ready?
Are you wearing a hoodie?
I am.
That is a first for Jimmy Dore to see Dylan. You know, it's like when you see your teacher at the grocery store, you're like, what the fuck? You have a life? It's like seeing Dylan Ratigan dressed like that. It's just kind of, wow, Dylan wears a hoodie.
Listen, man, you want to Skype me? It's 8 o'clock. It's Friday night. I'm in New York. You want to Skype? You know what? I mean, what do you want me to do?
No, I think it looks great. I'm not just saying.
I mean, if it was anybody else, I'd be like, no.
No, I think it looks great. I'm just saying. Normally you're in the button-down shirt. That's all. So let me go through this story. So Dylan texted me this the other day, and it's kind of part of what he predicted would happen when COVID started.
I mean, kind of. It's exactly what I predicted.
I mean, it's exactly what Dylan predicted would happen.
Thank you. All right, sorry about that.
On this show. And so here, let me just break it down, and then I'll bring you in, Dylan, and you can tell us what it all means. If you sell a house these days, from the Wall Street Journal, if you sell a house these days, the buyer might be a pension fund. What? So BlackRock is buying every single family house they can find, paying 20 to 50% above asking price and outbidding normal home buyers. Why are corporations, pension funds, and property investing groups buying entire neighborhoods out from underneath the middle class? Let's take a look. Homes are popping up on MLS and going under contract within a few hours. BlackRock, among others, are buying up thousands of new homes and entire neighborhoods. So who is BlackRock? Only the world's largest asset manager and the leading proponent of the Great Reset. They're looking to redistribute, get this, $120 trillion. The entire wealth of the world's middle class and poor combined several times over. As an example, 124 new home neighborhood was bought in its entirety in Texas. Average Americans were outbid to a tune of $32 million. Homes sold at an average of 20% above listing. Now the entire neighborhood is made up of SFRs. What's an SFR, Jimmy? Well, single-family rentals. Now your potential lower to middle class homeowner is positioned to be a permanent renter. This matters because for the lower and middle class, owning a home is the most major part of any financial success and future upward mobility. The only way to gain any kind of wealth in the country, in the United States, is through property, through real estate. This is a wealth redistribution, and it ain't rich people's wealth that's getting redistributed. It's normal American middle class, salt-of-the-earth wealth heading into the hands of the world's most powerful entities and individuals. The traditional financial vehicle gone forever. Home equity is the main financial element that middle-class families use to build wealth, and BlackRock, a Federal Reserve-funded financial institution, is buying up all the houses to make sure that young families cannot build wealth. That's right, Federal Reserve-funded financial institute. Let that sink in for a minute. They're using your tax dollars to F over the lower and middle class, and it's permanent. Not one present administration of bullshit. This is a fundamental reorganization of society. And Dylan predicted this, and here it is. So where does this position the average American in 30 years when it's given that every new neighborhood is to be bought up whole so they can be utilized as SFRs? Well, it positions them as peasants. Being poor can be temporary condition bettered by upward mobility. In the U.S. and other nations, home ownership is often the first and most vital step. This can provide for generational wealth and success, but as permanent, guaranteed renters, You're pissing away a lifetime of equity and the chance for mobility. You just became a peasant. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street control $20 trillion worth of assets. BlackRock alone has a $10 billion a year surplus. That means with 5 to 20% down, they can get mortgages on 130 to 170,000 homes every year. Or they can outright buy 30,000 homes per year. That's just BlackRock. Now imagine every major institute doing this, because they are. It can be such a fast sweeping action that 30 years may be overshooting it. They may be accomplishing feudalism in 15 years. But guess what? They're down for Gay Pride Month at BlackRock. Isn't that nice? So let's bring in Dylan Ratigan. So go ahead, Dylan, comment on this. What do you make of this?
I mean, it seems normal.
Wait a minute.
So
Seems like I mean, that was the plan, right? We talked about this.
But let me just say, I had a theory, Dylan, and you can comment on it, that the reason why the government wasn't giving us COVID relief, $2,000 checks, a UBI, whatever, was because they wanted you to default on your mortgage, because the people who own them are Wall Street investors, and they wanted to buy up all the houses just like they did the last time something like this happened. Does that make sense? Is that what's kind of happening?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if I'm going to give you all the money on your block, and for 1 week I'm going to make every house on your block go on sale for 10 cents on the dollar, and now you have, and then I give you all of their money for you to then go buy all of their houses, which is the Fed back end. Now you want to come move to Italy with me, don't you? Have you moved through the anger to the acceptance chamber? I mean, this is a system. We're reorganizing the money.
So this is what you said would happen. This is what we were screaming about at the beginning of COVID, and nobody else was talking about it. And this is happening. This is exactly what we were saying. So the people, there's going to be a handful of billionaires that have all the money, and when everybody else doesn't have any, and they're going to buy up all the assets, and now we're all going to be peasants. You said that pretty much on the show.
I said we're going to be Brazil.
Brazil. Permanent.
Remember, about a year ago, we were all talking Brazil. I mean, listen, it's not that big of a. It was egregious the last time. It's egregious now. The good news is, at this point, it's really still a new idea. And if you look at the percentage of the overall, like all the home sales in America, the percentage of overall home sales that's actually purchased by these big financial institutions is very small. Just to create a little, I'm just going to, now that I've made your almost, your blood boil. And so the good news is that it's really this idea of being able to do this, because there's only been two opportunities. There was the first time of the money printing in 08, 09, and then they did it again in 2020. And now you're like, oh, when they print the money, we can get a lot of it. The houses get cheap for a minute. We can buy them all. It's a good idea. But that thinking is really a minor piece of the housing market, and you could easily stop it legislatively 10,000 ways, either by limiting the number of homes that any institution can own, or by restricting the ability to outbid you have bidders that are going to live there and bidders that are not going to live there. There's two kinds of bids for a house, any house. And you could just basically say that any bid from someone who's not going to live there, who's a multi-family homeowner, like you can create a rule where you just eliminate their bid. And my point is that this is in its infancy, and it's honestly easy to fix. There's bigger things you and I could talk about around rulemaking. This one is very offensive, and so I bring it to your attention. And also just the predictability of it, I think, was worth circling back a year later to pat ourselves on the back. But it can be easily solved. It's awful, and it should be stopped.
But will it be solved, Dylan? I don't see how it's going to be solved, because the people doing this are the people who control government.
Well, no, it's the people that control it's the Realtors Association that wants to control who qualifies to buy a house, right? Like who regulates what a qualified bid is, right? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have how much cash? All these questions. And The Realtors Association does not want to eliminate any buyer, especially a huge financial buyer from New York.
Right.
So there's a bad incentive.
Right. So do you think this will be fixed?
I mean, people like you make a lot of noise, and it's a noisy crowd, and this one is pretty effective and easy to fix. It might be an easy win. It's like, listen, you're not going to give our money to these guys to come back and buy our houses for nothing. Okay? We got it. You have more money. You're the big, like, we're going to draw the line somewhere, and this might be a place to drop. You're not going to get health care. I know you got a whole list. You've been working for a long time.
No health care, no student loan debt relief, no $15 minimum wage.
I don't need to hear it. I don't need to hear it.
No jobs bill, no nothing.
Sure. But you might be able to stop them from buying all the houses.
And what else would you like to add to the story, Dylan? This is an amazing story.
No, I think I just would add, my big thinking right now is that, facts, and we all are working on facts. Facts are context dependent. And we like to take facts out of context. Was John Cabot a terrible explorer or in the context of their departure, were they perhaps amoral and vicious? I have no doubt. But again, I think that the facts outside of context has become an epidemic in the American information and global information markets, which maybe it sounds like cliche, like a complaining old man. But I believe that there's a service to be offered by taking all these out of context facts on every which way that are weaponized constantly and put back into context a little bit. And that's my hope, even with this BlackRock story with you, is it's horrendous. It's a structure, and there's a very confrontational approach, and there's a very systemic approach and strategic approach, and there's a point where there's an intersection, there's a barrier. For sure, and I think that society is looking for, where is that line? Is it with my privacy? Is it with my house? Is it with my health care? I think we're in a discovery period right now to really understand. I mean, the problem with the United States is it has the most corrupt and punitive tax code on earth, and it's ironically corrupted and punitive against the fact that we don't have a billionaires super tax, basically, where you are just powdering income north of $1 billion instead of this false morality of this distributed tax curve. It's absurd. They're banging on people for $2,000 trying to get it. And so I think that you have to look at the fundamentals of those realities in the context that they occur, which is that these are really old people at a time of a high rate of change, and they don't know what they're doing. And it's dangerous. But that's where the dialogue, the question is, how can you break through the noise machine to actually organize any shared understanding of facts? And that's the final frontier.
So this would take an act of Congress? Would they do that? I mean, how do you fix this? That's a question for a lawyer. There's obviously an opportunity to restrict who can buy houses at the sidewalk level. Just to know your customer banking profiles, right? Are you going to live here or not? You're not going to live here, right? But that's an easy place to engage in a rule. I don't know who makes that. So Dylan,
and then you have the covenants when we give these banks these trillions and trillions, and I'm yelling and screaming and we're running around. There's a set of covenants. It's a contract, and yes, I'm going to give you 1,500 billion, whatever the number is, and in exchange for your using that money, you're going to comply to these leverage requirements and these transparency requirements. There's a set of rules, and you could easily say, and none of the legacy, the problem is the institutions are so big, they'll say, listen, we didn't use the Fed money to do this. This is our money. It becomes a game of chicken. But my point is, you could do something at the top, regulate what can be done with the big Santa Claus ball of money, and something can be done at the sidewalk level on who can buy a house.
So wasn't that always a problem, especially in America, that we let like Chinese billionaires and all kind of billionaires from all over the world come and buy property in the United States, single family homes, and that was artificially also driving up prices of housing? Was that a big problem?
I honestly don't know the answer. Here's the thing: is there's no question that these financial institutions on a targeted level create huge price inflation when they target some town in Texas. So it makes for a great story. Mm-hmm. The reality of the housing market is that it's not the reason house prices are rising as quickly as they are right now and everything's bananas is not BlackRock's fault. That's the money printing, right? When you go to the money printer in the first place, you create a dynamic where things that have, whether it's lumber or copper wire or pork bellies, forget how it's seen. Money is treated as worth less.
Okay. Well, Dylan Ratigan, I appreciate you bringing this story to our attention. And thank you for coming on camera. We always enjoy seeing you, whether it be in a collared shirt or a hoodie or whatever it is. It's always nice.
A terrible connection.
Yeah, I know. We have a terrible connection. So
let's do it again.
Let's do it again when you got a better connection.
Let me get offshore where there's a better Wi-Fi.
Yeah. All right, Dylan. Thank you, buddy. Everybody check out Dylan, his podcast.
Don't you have to check it out? You don't have to check it out. You don't have to check it out.
No? Truth or Skepticism? No?
You can't. Oh yeah, Truth or Skepticism. You can check out Truth or Skepticism. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they should check out, right? Is there anything else you want me to tell them to check out?
No, that's the only thing worth checking out right now.
Okay. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.